Look at this 1800 map of the Ohio Valley frontier. Following fallen timbers, the U.S. systematically carved up indigenous territories. By treating each tribe as an isolated entity, diplomats applied relentless westward pressure, leaving native populations powerless to hold their ground. A battle-hardened Shawnee warrior named Tecumseh witnessed this relentless western displacement of his people firsthand. Having charged American artillery lines, he recognized that fractured, individualized resistance was doomed to fail. To prevent total territorial erasure, native sovereignty required an entirely new framework. That framework began with his younger brother, Lalawetheka. Originally a disgraced alcoholic figure among the Shawnee, he collapsed into a near-death trance in 1805 and emerged transformed, becoming Tenskwatawa, the open door. Tenskwatawa preached spiritual purification, urging native peoples to abandon European trade goods and alcohol. When he accurately predicted a total solar eclipse, his divine authority was cemented, igniting a massive, multi-tribal revival across the entire Great Lakes region. Tecumseh turned his brother's religious fervor into a legal doctrine. Land was held communally. Fragmented borders dissolved into a single, unified bloc. In 1808, they built Prophetstown, a multi-tribal capital drawing warriors from dozens of nations to live on shared land. The United States now faced a unified indigenous nation capable of halting westward expansion entirely. Governor William Henry Harrison recognized the threat of this unity immediately. While Tecumseh traveled to recruit more tribes, Harrison saw a window to manipulate the political landscape and divide the Confederacy. In 1809, Harrison convened a meeting at Fort Wayne. Through bribes and private deals, he convinced unauthorized chiefs to sign away 2 million acres of land for 2 cents an acre. Fierce. When Tecumseh returned and learned of the Treaty of Fort Wayne, he was furious. Relying on the doctrine of collective ownership, he declared the treaty legally void and threatened death to the chiefs who had signed it. This boiled over into an explosive confrontation at Vincennes in 1810. Tecumseh challenged Harrison face to face. As warriors stood their ground and Harrison drew his weapon, the two men became mortal enemies. Harrison's fraud proved to Tecumseh that the United States would never respect indigenous sovereignty on paper. Violent conflict was now inevitable. Preparing for war, Tecumseh departed to recruit the Creek and Choctaw nations in the south. He left Tenskwatawa in charge of Prophetstown with strict orders: avoid any military conflict with the Americans. Harrison did not wait. He marched a U.S. Army straight toward Prophetstown. Under intense pressure, Tenskwatawa panicked. Disobeying his brother, he told his warriors that a vision promised them invincibility, that American bullets would turn to water. At the Battle of Tippecanoe, that prophecy shattered. The warriors attacked, the magic failed, and taking heavy casualties, the native forces broke and retreated. Harrison's troops entered Prophetstown and burned it to the ground. In a single morning, years of stored food, supplies, and the spiritual center of the Confederacy were reduced to ash. The movement's aura of invincibility was gone. Tenskwatawa's hubris and blatant disobedience destroyed his brother's careful strategy from the inside out. With his capital in ruins, Tecumseh made a calculated final gamble. When the War of 1812 erupted, he allied with the British, hoping to forcefully secure a protected indigenous homeland in the Great Lakes. The alliance started strong under British General Isaac Brock. At Fort Detroit, Tecumseh used psychological warfare, having his warriors march in circles, looping through the woods to create the illusion of an endless army, forcing a bloodless American surrender. But the momentum collapsed when Brock was killed in battle. He was replaced by General Henry Proctor, a timid commander who possessed none of Brock's strategic nerve. As the war turned against them, Proctor repeatedly chose to retreat. He refused to fight, abandoning native territory to advancing American forces, while Tecumseh demanded they stand their ground. Tecumseh was trapped. He was fighting a desperate war for survival, relying entirely on a cowardly ally who prioritized British safety over indigenous land. In October 1813, the American army caught up to them at the Battle of the Thames. Tecumseh positioned his heavily outnumbered forces in a muddy, defensive thicket, preparing for a final fight. Then came the military betrayal. Proctor's British regulars broke ranks and fled almost immediately after the shooting started.
They left Tecumseh and his 500 warriors alone to face an advancing army of 3,000 Americans. Tecumseh refused to run. He fought in the swamp until he was shot and killed. His warriors carried his body away, hiding his grave forever. The panther across the sky fell fighting for a unified nation that his supposed allies had already abandoned. This document is the Treaty of Peace and Amity, the agreement ending the War of 1812. When peace negotiations concluded, the British government dropped the promise to create an indigenous homeland. They restored the pre-war borders, ignoring the native blood spilt for their cause. Without British backing or Tecumseh's leadership, the unified resistance collapsed. Within a few years, virtually all indigenous peoples in the Great Lakes region were forcibly removed from their homes.
The Confederacy collapsed under a sequence of failures: the fraud of the U.S. government, the hubris of a prophet, the cowardice of a general, and a final broken promise written on parchment.